to the Journey to Happy podcast, a podcast dedicated to help you in the process of getting out of your own way and letting go of the mental barriers that have been self-created that stand on the way of you and the emotional freedom and happiness that you so desire. I am Olga, your host, and in here I'm going to offer you raw but real examples that will help you step into the shoes of becoming the CEO of your own life. Because let's face it, in a world where you can be anyone you want, why not promote yourself to the CEO position? I cannot wait to see you inside. Welcome everybody to this episode of Journey to Happy. I am incredibly excited because today I have a very special guest, somebody who I've been chasing for months to book her for this podcast because she's incredibly busy. She's a mom of 4, 3 on earth and 1 beautiful angel. She is Miss Canada World 2021 CEO of Elevate International, Global Ambassador to UNICEF Canada. And I'm sure I'm missing things in between because every time I speak to her, she's doing something else. So I'm super excited to introduce you to Miss Solange Tuyishime. She just told me how to say her name, which means the month of May, which is beautiful. Solange, welcome to our podcast. I am so incredibly excited to have you here. And I know how hard it is for you to schedule in anything. And full disclosure, she was like, I'm trying to get ready because I just dropped off my children and I want to look like a mom who's had coffee at least. So, and she looks beautiful. Some of you can't see her, but she looks absolutely beautiful. So yeah, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this. I've always loved our conversations as friends, and I've loved our conversations as the expert that you are and everything that you do. I feel like every time the rest of us open anything that you do, I feel like you're fixing us a little bit. So I always love the work that you do, and I'm really, really excited about this conversation.
Thank you. And you know what? I feel that the admiration is mutual. I'm always amazed by all the things you've done. Solange and I used to go for workouts or after a workout, meet at Starbucks, have coffee, and just share our ideas to change the world. And we're like, one day we're going to be doing things as we were doing things, I must add. And it's just excited to see how we have actually landed into our purpose and do some of that. And so the first thing I wanted to ask you, tell us, what is Elevate International? What is this company you've created? What is it all about? I know you're incredibly passionate about it. So tell me a little bit. Let us know what it is. What do you do inside Elevate International?
I always say that Elevate International is like my 5th baby because it's this thing that you create from scratch. But basically, I found that, I've lived an interesting life. I've gone through different challenges and circumstance. And, as a kid growing up, you always dream of making the world a better place. And it was something I had promised myself for so long. And I was very fortunate to become a UNICEF Canada ambassador very early on in my public career, quote unquote, if we would put it that way. But I always continue to ask myself, how do I contribute to really making this world a better place? And I found for me that we have so many problems in this world, but yet women and girls are rarely sitting at the leadership table. And the problems that are affecting the most people in this world are usually women and girls. So we suffer the most, but yet we're not sitting at the leadership tables to be amongst a part of the solutions that are being created for us. It made no sense. And it's almost like the world has taught us to be okay with being the ones that are being helped all the time, instead of being the ones that are actually making the decisions that affect us. So Elevate International was purely a labor of love. I wanted to create a space where more women can really think about the leaders that they're becoming. And I wanted to create a space where we start encouraging more girls to grow up believing and trusting that they're leaders. So that was the whole Elevate International. It's my fifth baby. And it's this wonderful organization that started with nothing. I had $0 in my bank account. I had just lost a child. I didn't feel like I wanted to just keep driving this life with mediocrity. So I wanted to really, really sink in my purpose and try to figure out and put a few pieces of the puzzle together of why I'm here. So just to see being born and starting to create a movement and starting to change the impact the impact that we're having in our society, it's beautiful. Every little step, I sink in gratitude because I can't believe how it's starting to grow.
So, what has been some of the most gratifying work that Elevate International has contributed to? I think the mission is amazing, to want to give voice to women and girls. What do you feel the most proud so far about the work that the organization has accomplished?
Honestly, for me, I'll never forget on International Women's Day. Not this year was amazing. We still had an amazing International Women's Day, but last year on International Women's Day, I remember the Right Honorable Michaëlle Jean accepting my invitation to come and speak. And at first I thought, for sure, they've made a mistake. For sure, they must think it's some other Solange, or, because of course, as women, we always underestimate ourselves and we often question our worthiness. And up until the last moment when she arrived in the room, I was like, oh my gosh, she's here. And I remember pulling a photo in 2011 when I became Miss Canada Galaxy, and I attended one of the events where she was receiving an award, and we quickly exchanged 5 minutes, and she basically kind of told me, if you want something, you're going to have to go for it, and don't think that the world owes you anything. You're going to have to really, really fight for your dreams and not let go. So it's almost and I remember looking at that photo, and I shared it at the conference that day, because here we were 10 years later, and she's speaking at my conference. And not only that, to look at someone like me who's always believed that I arrived in Canada as a little immigrant girl, to host an International Women's Day on Parliament, to literally say International Women's Day on the Hill. And I'm the one driving that. And to see a room full of 600 people, it was so mind-blowing for me. It really showed me that I wish more girls knew what they're capable of doing. And I wish more women could drive their dreams with so much passion and so much dedication and so much resilience. So I felt that for someone who often thought that maybe I didn't belong so well in this world, to have a room full of 600 people, to have the Right Honorable Michaëlle Jean say, in her speech, her opening speech, saying, President and CEO of Elevate International, Mrs. Solange Tchim, I thought I was gonna, I had no words. I thought I was gonna cry.
Is this me?
Exactly. It was that moment of wow, is this real? So, I think that was probably one of the greatest gratitude moments, because it wasn't about how much money you have. It wasn't about how popular you are. It wasn't anything materialistic or anything this world is trying to make important. It was all about where your heart lies and where your hard work meets your passion. It was just all heart-centered, which is what I loved about it.
And you said something now. I wish more girls, more women knew what they were capable of. And so let's make this podcast about not wishing, but letting them know what are the steps. Because Solange, you and I have like both done amazing things. I think we both share that we came to this country as refugees. Our experience being completely different, which we'll dive into. I really want people to hear your story because it's incredible what you've done out of your life story. But also, I think that we have tapped into that power ourselves. And like as you were talking, I was getting goosebumps, and I'm like, I can only imagine what that felt like for you, because that was the dream. That was the dream. And you were just one human thinking, yo, I want everybody in a room talking about what is possible. And then you did it. And there is always the small conversations we can have with one person who can change everything for us, right? So you talk about that 5-minute exchange, like you're really gonna have to go and you don't owe anything to the world. Amazing. In other words, take it. Go take what you need and don't feel like you're in debt the rest of your life because you've taken the space that you were here to take. So I say you and I use this podcast today to give people what they need to hear so that they go and realize whatever dream they have. You guys, when I met Solange, we were at a business meeting. I was just starting Olga's Way. I think I was taking baby steps of Olga's Way. I think that you were just starting Elevate. I'm not even sure that was already concretely accomplished. And in one of our conversations, Solange shared with me that she came to this country as a refugee, which I always, right? That's
yeah,
yeah, not wrong. I cherish so much because that was my life experience too. So it's not just an immigrant who had all the funds, who was like, okay, we're moving. We've had this life plan and we're going to a different country. It kind of like life pulled, that's how it feels for me, a rock from underneath me. And it was like, oh, by the way, you're moving. Say goodbye to your country. And this is your new country, your new language, your new culture. And I think I don't need to go into a lot of details, but walk us through, where do you come from? Where were you born and raised? And in like brief, because I know these are probably years of your lifetime, but how is it that you ended up coming to Canada as a refugee?
So I'm originally from East Africa, born and raised, loved it till the age of 11. So the majority of my life in Africa, of course, it's from Rwanda. And beautiful childhood, everything you can imagine and dream of. And then, of course, the war and genocide happened, which many people know about. And we became refugees. And, and it's almost like the same as you. I think at an 11-year-old, I thought, oh, maybe we might move into another country and make new friends and build a new life. But it wasn't like that. It was almost like, well, there's war and they're killing half of your people and your family members and you got to go. And it was almost like going from, you go from living in a safe and secure environment to completely living in the middle of a refugee camp and sleeping in a tent. You go from sleeping in a beautiful home to sleeping in a tent, and all of a sudden you were once a child who they drove to school, and now you're walking to school. And not only are you walking to school, you're also walking 10 kilometers just to go look for clean drinking water. So it was a very life-changing moment for me, and just watching how my life moving from one country to country with nothing, no additional funds, no additional money to survive. And you have to figure out how you start surviving one day at a time. I think I was always grateful that our parents had always taught us to be human first over everything else. But I think that moment really solidified for me that in the middle of any chaos, in the middle of any war, genocide, or disaster, it's really understanding who we are as human beings and how we connect as human. So, after Rwanda, we moved in many different countries, from Congo, Uganda, and Kenya. But finally, in 1996, we made our way to Canada. And that's really where the second part of my life begins. Then at that point, I'm a 13-year-old, and I go back to school, and I start learning again how to speak the different languages, because every country I had to learn a new language in order to go to school. And I started life, and there I was in high school trying to figure out who I am, and I learned that I could make friends if I played sports. So I started playing soccer, which in where we come from is called football. And that's how I started making friends, and doors started opening, and I started being part of the community. That's really how my life went up until the point where I started becoming an adult and started, creating or designing what my life would be.
So first of all, I just want to stop and acknowledge how what you told us in such a short, story shows the incredible resiliency that lives within you. From country to country, the fear, I left my homeland, my entire family was there, unsafe. We were persecuted, my family was persecuted, but not an entire population of my people in my country. And I can only imagine what that can feel like. And probably my imagination does not do justice to what that actually is like. And to have gone from country to country, learning languages, walking 10 kilometers, the life changed so drastic, yet you did it. And when you came to Canada, you did it again. And I know within Canada, because I happen to know part of your life story, you've had to start all over again a few times. And the thing that I admire the most about you, Solange, is that you do it. You roll up your sleeves and you're like, all right, so here we go. We're going to start this all over again. And life hasn't been always soft and kind to you. You've had to deal with hardships that are very, very difficult, like losing a child. And you have always done it with a smile. You just and it's not like you avoid the pain, you feel the pain and you do something with it. And I think this is what I would love for the audience to hear us talk. I can probably relate to that level of resiliency. And I think that one of the ways in which we materialize wishes, we go from a wish to materializing that into a factual reality, is understanding that we were born to do difficult things and that we can do it. And if we can just learn to adjust, that's it. Open up to all right, so this is it. I cannot resist it. It's happening. I'm in a different country. I don't have the car driving me to school. I'm going to have to walk. All right. You could have sit there and just resist it. No, I'm not doing this. I need a car to pick me up and take me to school. And it wouldn't have changed the circumstances, and it would have made life a lot more difficult. But I think that just coming back to what is it required of me at this moment with what's given is what allows us to just go from I wish life was better to making life better, to owning that. So, every time you tell your story, I'm always like, this is amazing. And I mean, if you guys have never heard about the conflict in Rwanda and the genocide and the incredible suffering that people have gone through and continue to go through, I think that you do yourself a favor by educating yourself on that subject to really appreciate what some of your fellow Canadians or whatever it is that you are may have experienced. And this is also what I love about Solange. You look at her perfectly put together. She's here's Canada world. She's beautiful. She has the most beautiful gowns. Her photos, I've never seen a photo of Solange where she doesn't look straight out absolutely perfectly beautiful. And behind that face, there is a story of overcoming difficulties. And I mean, that point is what made me put this podcast together. I wanted people who had an Instagram perfect story, because how many of us compare ourselves to others and we're like, she doesn't know what suffering is.
Oh.
But really behind that beautiful face, there's a beautiful story of tears and sweat, my friends. And she's made of this reality, whatever she's living today, her reality, because she dreamt of it. And then she adjusted to the circumstances and didn't give up. And by the way, we say football too in South America. So not sure what happened in that translation. In North America, they're wrong. Now, there is a lot of people actually listening in this podcast, my stats tell me, who are in Africa. So what will you say maybe to women who might be thinking their life circumstances right now suck, and maybe they're not in Africa, maybe they're right here in Canada thinking their life circumstances suck so much? What will you say to our listeners just listening to this story? Like what could they do? What's one thing that could help them land into this day with a little bit more courage?
Oh my gosh. I think that, you know what I'm appreciating is that this answer is like fine wine. It becomes better and better with age, and I'm starting to notice it myself. And again, one of the other things that I'm also starting to implement myself, because we don't do it enough as women. You know, as I look at my journey and I look at what I've gone through, there are some things that I wish I had known earlier. But I'm also grateful that I didn't know them earlier, because now I can easily share them with those that are going through difficult circumstances. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, first thing is first. I think as women around the world, we carry so much pain. We carry a lot of pain. And sometimes we are in this society where it's almost like, just get up and go and get through it and not even acknowledge it. Just get up, go, keep going. And we don't take the time to heal our wounds. So in the end, as we grow, we become more and more broken without even noticing it. So in order for us to be the leaders that we genuinely deserve to become and we are meant to become, I think it requires us to always take a moment and acknowledge what we just went through, whether it was a traumatic experience, a loss, a moment of difficulty. It's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to take the time to love yourself more than the world is loving you right now. And I feel like for me, that is something that took me 36 years to recognize. I'm 37 now. And I can tell you that it wasn't until last year. And it wasn't even because I came to the realization of it. It came because I kept pushing to take care of everyone else but me until my body said, enough. And I took that moment and I took a break and I thought, oh my gosh, in the last years, I've lost a child. As a girl, I've grown up and I've lost so many family members. I went through genocide. I became a refugee. And I never took a moment to say, what does this mean for Solange? And I think the earlier we do that and we understand a little bit what that means, it means that we start stepping forward wholeheartedly, not with a half heart, because we're so afraid of opening up the other half, terrified that we might fall apart and break apart. Or in the other way, if we don't acknowledge what we've been through, then you don't know why you snap at people, why you're always angry, why you're always tired, why you gain weight so much because you binge eat, or why you don't eat at all. You don't understand why you do the things you do to yourself and to others and to the society. So I think for us, for so long, we've talked about resilience and leadership, and people thought that it was the people who just go and you could just do it. But I think if we took a step back and we understood that leadership is love, then we would start by loving ourselves and by taking care of ourselves and nurturing ourselves. And then really taking that moment to say, when something bad happens to you, it's never happening against you. It's happening for you. So I go for these runs every morning, and I always say, when I'm going through a difficult moment, I said, okay, God, what do you want me to learn in this moment? So whether it's God, whether it's the universe, whoever your higher power is, or whether it's your internal spirit, you just say, this is really hard. But what are you trying to teach me that I'm going to teach the world? Or what skill, what tool, what knowledge, what wisdom you're trying to give me that will bring more light in this world. That is how you start finding your purpose. And even in the midst of chaos and in the midst of your hardest circumstance, dare to dream, it's okay to have glimpse of happiness when you're falling apart. I think for me, those are two things that I'm grateful that I've always had. So as a girl in the middle of a refugee camp, I could imagine myself standing on a stage in front of thousands of people and making them smile. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what that could look like. It wasn't like I couldn't really go and pinpoint it and say, oh, it's the Prime Minister of Canada, or it's the president of that country, or it's a singer, I didn't know what that was, but I could still see myself on a stage and thousands of people in front of me, and I was making them smile, and I was making them feel loved and appreciated. And I still remember that little girl, and I remember the tent where I was standing in my little blue dress, and it was probably one of the 3 dresses that I owned at the time. So the idea that when you're going through hardship, you can't dare to dream is not true. And don't let anybody tell you anything else, because we are born through and with love. So therefore, it's okay to feel all these beautiful things, even through the hardest situation. And then, so once you start dreaming, it's really when you start saying, okay, now I have this beautiful dream and I saw it. And it's real because you've dreamt about it. And I always say, I had this coach, she was actually one of my pageant coach, and she used to say, if you dream about it, then it means that God has already said yes. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh my gosh, can you imagine if you walk through life knowing I'm in a horrible circumstance right now, but if I've dreamt about it, that means my universe has already said yes to me. So then you start the work. And it's work. It's a lot of work. It means the work of healing, the work of understanding who you are, the work of how you take care of yourself, the work of understanding what your purpose is, and the work of really just leaning on people and knowing how to ask for help. Because I know that many of us who are go-getters, who are dreamers, we are terrified of falling apart in front of the world. And we're so afraid of asking for help because we feel like we're annoying someone. But you know what? I've learned that you have to ask for help. And the best thing I've realized through this journey, whether it's with Elevate or even my own personal journey, if I reach out to you and I say, hey, Olga, I'm really facing some type of depression, blah, blah, blah. Can you help me understand it? Chances are, most of the time, you probably say, yeah, let's meet for coffee. Or here's my calendar. Or this is what the services I provide. But also in that moment, if Olga says no or doesn't answer your message or doesn't, it's not personal. It means in that moment, they're not the ones that are supposed to walk with you through that period of your journey. And that's it. It's nothing that person has against you. It's not that nobody likes you. It just means in that moment, they're not walking with you through this journey. Maybe at another time of your journey, another season. So you just say, oh, okay, not bad. Who's next? You just keep checking your list until you find the people that are bringing you the tools that you need to grow as the leader that you're meant to become. So I think that, for so long we talk about leadership and resilience, and people think about, it's how smart you have to be, it's how much money you have to have. But no, it's who you are internally and how much you're going to believe in your dreams. To believe in your dreams to the point that when the world is saying no and everything around you is not working, you're just like, no, it's going to work. Who's next? Who's next to help me get it done?
Have you been thinking that it's time to join a gym membership, only that for your mindset? Have you been wanting to be a part of a community where your self-growth is what's being supported? Do you want to have a life coach in your back pocket, easy to reach at any given point? If you've been thinking that this is something for you, Reset Your Mindset might be exactly what you're looking for. It's my newest membership program where you have me on a regular basis answering your questions, where you will get monthly mindset trainings with some of my best tools, and most recurring theme subjects in my coaching practice. You will also receive a work along workbook to move along, and you will have Zoom group calls with me to get your questions answered and to process some of those heavier emotions that you just don't know what to do about. If this sounds interesting to you, check out my website at www.olgaswade.com and look for Reset Your Mindset membership program. I cannot wait to see you inside. I absolutely love this energy you're bringing. I think my listeners are not strange to that talk of love. I dive in fully into that energy, and maybe that's what you and I have in common, that we believe we were made with love, we were born with love, and we're here to cultivate more of the same. And in the moments where fear has taken over and I go into panic mode, I recognize that's fear, and I then ask myself, what would love do right now? Will love have me suffering and running through the possibilities of how this is not going to happen? No, never. Love will never do that for me, or would do it itself. I so believe, like you, Solange, in our ability to co-create what we want. And I love what that coach told you. If you can dream it, in other words, if you can visualize it, if you can see it happening, it's been agreed on. It's coming. Can you now trust the process and let it happen? And I also love this story you've told yourself about people being a good match to where you're at, matching your energy levels, calling up on you or not. I have a limited amount of hours that I have to work with people. And one of my greatest struggles as a coach, life coach, and therapist is like saying no to people who I know need the help. And I'm like, oh God, I so wish I could help you. And then the trust that I come back to is that if it's not working out right at this moment, that we work together, it's because the universe is going to bring them back to somebody who's the perfect match for where they're at right now. And we will meet again. And I just released that it's not for me to touch everybody's life necessarily at that moment that they're reaching out, but that they're going to find that person. Just like I've seen like the stars align perfectly when people who are in the perfect energetic match to do the work that I help people do land into my calendar, right? So I love this because it's not about taking it personally, but if you do want to take it personally, then what story can you tell yourself about what that no means? What does it mean to you? It's not the right person, it's not the right mentor, it's not the right partner, it's not in that moment what is going to elevate you to where you need to be, what's matching up with what your heart is calling for. So I think this is such an important work. And for anybody who's listening and thinking, well, that's easier said than done, you're right. We're retraining the brain. You have been thinking a certain way for a certain amount of years. And now you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking like, oh my God, hold on, what? I can have it all? Like, you guys, I journal every single morning. My manifestation journal is in the morning, and I write down what I want to see happening. And then I write down what will be accessible to me if that goal was accomplished. If I was already sitting in that room in front of 600 people, what will be accessible to me? And that's what motivates me to then get past the hardships of what I think will be to get to that goal, because it is so worth it when I can pay attention to what I will be getting, what people will be getting by me getting to that on that stage, right? So you talk about leadership, and maybe some of our listeners are not like feeling like they're leaders on anything. You are the leader of your own life, my friends. You are the CEO of your life. So whether that's as a school teacher, as a homestay mom, you are responsible. You're the leader of your life. So get out of that mindset that says, I'm not a leader. I'm not impressing anybody. Nobody's following me. I've got news for you. You're following you, my friend. So step into those shoes of what it would be like to be the leader of your own life. Where are you leading yourself towards right at this moment? Just stop and look at your surroundings. Do you like where you're by yourself? No. All right. There is change possible. Like, change is possible. What would you want? Where would you want to lead yourself versus waiting to see who's going to lead you where? Just actively jump into the shoes of the woman who says, I wouldn't dream of speaking in front of 600 people. And I don't know how, I don't know who's going to be in that room, but I am going to walk towards that thing that I want to. Now, Solange, in terms of overcoming difficulties, I do see that you believe, and I actually remember us having a conversation way back then where you were like, but I'm terrified. And I'm like, dude, you can do this. You've got so much to offer, right? And we're always so much better at seeing the potential in other people. Like, you will speak in front of 600 people. As for me, I have no idea if I can do that, but you can. I know you can. What would be your best way to get past fear? And I mean, I've met you shortly after you had lost Naya. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
And I remember, I mean, as a woman, and I wasn't a mom at the time, I just remember like feeling your feelings. And something I will never forget, I wasn't even working with bereavement parents then, I now am, but something that I remember was how you took that pain and created something beautiful. What were those steps? How did you grab like this broken heart and then said like, hold on, this pain is for nothing? So I heard you loud and clear when you said to God, what do you need me to learn? And how am I going to use this life experience to inspire other people or to help other people? And I can see that being a huge motivator. What else can you tell us happens inside Solange's mind when she's going through such a difficult life event like it is grieving the loss of a child, and then grabbing that life experience, feeling it fully, and then doing something magical with it? And I will call it magical because I remember being there, just witnessing what you were doing with this. You said that the loss of my daughter is not going to go in vain. I'm doing something about it. What are those steps? Like, for you might be common sense, but for a lot of people is not. So what gets you out of the dark?
So I'm a big believer that we're not born to suffer. Suffering is an outcome out of the circumstances that happen in this world, but it's not ours to carry forever. So for me, I've always felt that when something so difficult happens to you, then something good must come out of it. Something good must come, because as I think, and especially now as a mom, as I think about it, I see how children are, when the moment a child is born is probably the most magical moment the world will ever experience. Each and every one of those. It's the purest, most loving, most amazing moment, because in that moment, there's so much love. It's like one of those things that you can never explain. So for me to go back and think that we are born in such love and beauty that then life equates suffering would not make sense. So for me, I've always felt that through every challenging circumstance, something good has to come out of it. And the problem is that as human beings, we're so short-sighted that we only see the immediate suffering instead of seeing the long-term benefit and effect that we can have in this world. So for me, I lost my daughter, yes, and 7 hours of surgery, 10 days of knowing her, hours of carrying her, last breath with me. There are still moments that affect how I feel in the moment. But if I was so short-sighted, I would be so caught up in that pain versus the eternal love that I've gained because of her. Knowing her is a blessing forever. That's forever, long term. Being able for her to have her last breath in my arms. That's forever. And he also reminds me that how beautiful life is and how fortunate I was to be with her during her last moment. Long term, he also reminds me that 3,000 mothers will lose a baby today. It's a thing that I don't want them to go through. So I was fortunate to say goodbye, but those 3,000 mothers, probably 80% wouldn't even have an opportunity to have their children in their arms take their last breath. So I think when we're going through something very difficult, yes, the fear kicks in of what if I do this and it fails and I'm hurt again on top of the hurt that I already have. But if you approach it in a sense of, I have nothing to lose. I'm giving love without any other expectation. And the love that I'm giving this world is the love that I already have in my heart, so nobody can take it away from me. So when I created Nyla's Legacy, it was all about thinking about the mothers who lose children every day and understanding how that pain that I went through, I didn't want other moms to go through it. And I also wanted many little Nylas to stay here on earth and not go back to heaven. Sure, I'm sure she has friends up in heaven. But I also want so many mothers to have a beautiful ending. And I also understand that not everybody has the resilience that I have. So I don't want them to go through that pain. So I don't know. I think that when you have a dream, you have to think about the long-term love that you're giving in this world instead of the short-term pain that almost, it's very, pain is very, how would I put it? I'm trying to find the right word. It's almost like pain is sort of this, it's a lie, because it traps you into thinking that this is how you're going to feel forever. But pain can also be beautiful. The pain that I carry out of missing my daughter every day is also based on a foundation of love. So I have no choice but to remember her in a beautiful way. Watching a little 3-pound baby go through 7 hours of surgery, but yet as adults, you get a cold and you think you're gonna die. You know what I mean? It showed me that she had so much resilience. And then I thought, oh, you're just like your mother. Because that's, I thought about my resilience, and I thought about a little 3-pound baby going through 7 hours of surgery. And every time I held her hand, she would look up to me and open her arms. And I thought, what a beautiful, magical moment. So I think that when we go through pain, there's little pockets of happiness and love that we tend to forget. But if we keep remembering those pockets of love, they almost surpass the fear that we have in advancing in this world. So,
You made me cry, you ladies. So you guys, I don't know if you can see it. Those of you who are in the YouTube channel, you'll be able to see that my mascara went all over because I cannot hear that story and not cry. So maybe some of you have, and that's okay, because we can relate to that love that she was talking about, I can't even say the words that you said, because I would just break into tears thinking of what that feels like. One thing that I want to rescue from what you're saying, which I think is your point, is turning to gratitude right in the midst of chaos. It's possible, and it's a choice, that the most resilient, happiest people turn to in the moment where they really need to look at what to be thankful for. So here we have Solange saying she held her baby until she took her last breath. And that's when I started crying. I'm like, wow, I can't even imagine that feeling. But then to hear the beauty of her words, to say how lucky was I to have met my daughter, to have held her for that long. Instead of turning her mind to, I only had her for 10 days. It was unfair that life took her this early. I can see how the mind can go to places of scarcity, where no matter what you have wasn't enough. It wasn't what you have planned. And so many times our expectations are not met. Who here carries a full-term pregnancy thinking this baby is going to pass 10 days after? Nobody. This is not an expectation we have. But when life presents us with something so painful like that, we have the choice to look at, what did we earn from this? What was the gift? I talk about the gift, I'm always looking at what was the gift here for me, because there's always a gift. And when you can identify the gift and grab it, that life experience has shifted you for the best. And I think this is something I want all of you listening. If you're taking something as to how can we build resiliency, and if you're wondering what resiliency is our ability to adjust to difficult circumstances where we're not impacted indefinitely in a negative way, where we can draw from that life experience and think of the positives. When I think of my worst, darkest moments in my life, of things that have happened, I also don't think of the darkest parts. Like you, when I tell this story back, it's the story of all the lessons I had. You talk about unconditional love. I feel that that's the lesson my son came to teach me even before he was here. All the losses I had, all the long, painful journey to get to my baby boy was full of beautiful lessons. The biggest one being unconditional love, to love my body regardless of how I was functioning, regardless of giving me a baby or not. I landed into that discovery. So when we talk about being the leader of your life, we're talking about making decisions like this one. Like, you no longer will hold on to a story that keeps you down, that keeps you close to the pain. But that, like Solange described pain as something that is fake, like almost like fear, false reality appearing real, is telling you you're going to be in pain forever. Nothing is forever, but we can choose to say some things will be forever and unchangeable. Like love is like, it doesn't matter where you are. We can choose to continue to love the people that we want to love. And Solange said it best. It starts with ourselves. If we could only understand that by that lock that has love inside is within us, that the key to unlock it is by saying, I choose, because it's a choice, to love me. And if that means I have to rewrite my story, I will rewrite my story so that I can pay attention to the gifts, to the loving aspects, to the things about this otherwise awful experience that have been so great. Like, think of 2020. So many people can list all the horrible things that have happened. Meanwhile, I have like this ongoing list of all the wonderful things that I have found through 2020. Like, it's just been the year of like reconnection. Finally, everybody's listening to me by their force, and they're unplugging from the things that they were doing like in autopilot for years. So I think that we're able to rewrite our story any given point. Solange, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, not only thank you for showing up to this podcast, but thank you for lighting up your light and not letting anything or anyone dim that light away from your purpose. Because by you doing the work that you're doing, you're literally changing people's ways of looking at life, people's decision making on a daily basis. So never stop. I know. I don't need to tell you this. You're like me, unstoppable. We got an idea. We're like, oh no, I'm going to keep going through this until I see it come through, or until I accept that this isn't in my best interest, but I'm going to give this a try. Where can we connect people to you? How can people be a part of Elevate International? What do we want to send people to? Where do we want to send people to connect with you?
Yeah, so you can connect with me on many different platforms. If you're trying to connect with me personally, whether it's as a speaker or as a contributor to any content, my website is misssolange.com. Really easy. Just send me an email. Through the work of Elevate, of advancing women and girls as leaders in our society, elevateinternational.ca. There's so many beautiful work coming ahead around women in leadership and girls in leadership. And of course, as Mrs. Canada World, which I cannot believe that I carry this title, and I'm incredibly honored. I'm dedicating 2021 to advancing as many girls as possible education. So I'll be raising funds to put more girls in schools in the middle of chaos, such as a year of 2020, when there is something like pandemic, wars, everything in between. Women and girls take many, many, many years back in terms of advancing as leaders, and we want to make sure that we reduce that as much as possible. So the more girls we can keep in school, the better. It's simple as $35 of sanitary napkins, so a girl doesn't have to miss 50 days of school. Sometimes we think that it's things that are so complex, but they're not. So let's really try to make sure that more women can survive this very challenging year, which it is challenging. We have to call it what it is. Women are now working from home, but at the same time taking care of their families. So the idea of taking on an additional challenge of applying to be a leader in your organization, in a company, or a promotion sounds quite impossible. So let's make sure that we can keep surrounding a lot of women with a lot of love, self-love, and a community that continues to support them during these challenging times. Let's make sure that more girls have an education. And I always finish with my favorite quote, and I think I should trademark it by now. It says, "You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm." So as women, take care of yourself before you can take care of everyone else, and know that you are loved and you are appreciated and you are a leader within your own rights.
Oh, I love that. Love that quote. Don't set yourself on fire, my friends. That's amazing. Solange, again, thank you so much. And if ever you feel that my community can be of help for yours, please don't hesitate to contact upon this army of women who I know will be behind any of your incredible initiatives, because we're here because we want to improve ourselves and improve our planet, right? So I think that every contribution, whether it's with your own mindset or actually contributing donations somewhere, makes a big difference to the overall well-being of ladies and young girls in this planet. I am so proud of you. As a friend who hasn't seen you in years, and I know how far you've come, I am without words to say I'm not surprised, first of all, but I'm also so incredibly proud of the work you've accomplished and the lives that you're touching. So I consider myself very lucky to have you here, that my listeners are listening to you. And I'm so thankful you have followed your heart all the way through, because it's creating wonderful things. So thank you so much. Talk to you.
Thank you for having me. I am so grateful for you. I'm grateful for you as a friend. I'm grateful for you as a leader in our community. I think you are a perfect example of what women should be doing, which is women empower women. I can think of you when you were there for me, and I had nothing at all in my head, that false idea that you think you have nothing at all, and you were that person that reminds you, what are you talking about? You're going through pain, but you still have everything that you've always had. Nothing has changed. So I love what you're doing for our community. I love of women around the world. I love how you continue to inspire us and to also make us feel like we belong. We come with so many imperfections, but you welcome us with so much love I always walk out whenever I talk to you, whether it's in your office or for coffee. I walk out, I'm like, dang it, I'm perfect. Yeah, I'm amazing. That's because it's how you make me feel. I walk in there and think, oh gosh, this sounds like it's going to be impossible to conquer. And I walk out and I call my husband. I'm like, babe, do you know how amazing I am?
You know how lucky you are to call me your wife, my friend.
That's right.
I'm so happy to hear that. And honestly, I feel like this is my life mission, is to look at the greatness in people. And I, like you, the work has turned to myself, and to be able to understand, oh wait, I'm also great. I can't just tell people they're great. I've got to look into my own greatness, and the impact that has had by me recognizing this is incredible, because then I can lead from an authentic place. And this is why I love the way you talk. I can tell you've done the work, you're in alignment. And so it's so easy to be coached by somebody who's read the books and is like, oh, technically you have to start here and then go there. But then there's people like you and I who have gotten our hands dirty. We've done the work. We know what pain is, and we also know the choice that can be made to get out of that painful scenario with gratitude and with a sane mind. It's possible, ladies. It is very possible. So if nothing else, I just hope that this podcast has inspired you to make choices today that inspire you. that make you feel proud and great about who you are with imperfections and all. As always, please, I ask you to subscribe to this podcast if you like it. It allows me to bring great people like Solange into the podcast. And it allows me to know what you find helpful, what you don't find helpful. So give us a review, leave us a note, let us know what you think. What else do you want me to talk about in this podcast? Because God knows I can talk. So just tell me what you need so that I can give you exactly what you need. And I will catch you guys at our next episode. Thank you so much for popping in and listening. Talk to you soon.